Trump didn't divide America. He just doused us with gasoline and fanned the flames. DeShane Stokes. These terrorists are the antithesis of Islam. They're not Muslim. Violence has no place in religion, and the terrorists are responsible for their own crimes, not the religion and not us. Samira Ahmed. London is one of the world's centers for Arab journalism and political activism. The failure of the left and right, the establishment and its opposition to mount principled arguments against clerical reaction has had global ramification. Ideas minted in Britain, the notion it is bigoted to oppose bigotry, Islamophobic, to oppose clerics whose first desire is to oppose Muslims, swirl out through the press, and then net to lands where they can do real harm. Nick Cohen. And I could keep going, but I'm not. Hey guys, this is All Minus One. If you are not familiar, welcome to the channel. My name is Bill. Please like, share, subscribe. Go find me over on Locals at All Minus One. I put most of my half an hour or less content there, as well as on YouTube, Rumble, PeerTube, and BitChute. I am there on all of those. I'm also on Instagram, All Minus One. I put my videos there as well. I'm trying to back up as many places as I can. If you guys are so inclined, you can give me a monthly donation if you would like to help support. Over on Subscribestar, I do have tiers that have some involvement with that if you are so inclined. I understand times are lean and tough for many folks right now. Also, I do have a live show. The ends justify the memes, because we all know the ends always justify those memes. In any case, that's on DLive and on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday night, sometimes at other times. Tomorrow night, that is March 10th, 2021, we should have Adam Kolkesh on the show. I never know with guests because sometimes there are mix-ups and confusions. In fact, Adam messaged me February 10th, texted me when I was driving home from Florida, and was like, dude, can we delay it a couple hours? And I'm like, March 10th, brother, March 10th. So such things happen. Like, I do my best to get them in. In any case, with all that out of the way, let's get into the topic. And why did I bring up these quotes? Well, one, we're talking about Trump dividing America. This is nonsensical rhetoric, literally a gaslight, as it has been a false dichotomy between Republicans and Democrats dividing America for decades. Here we're talking about there's no place for violence within the religion of peace. Well, you might think, Bill, why are you putting up Islamophobic or anti-Islamophobic quotes? Because I need to start off good. I need to clarify. Where I'm going with my video here today. And this, in part, is the lie that's been told in the 20th century that just isn't true. You can read the history of Islam. This is just not true. Modern Islam claims this, but that's because essentially after the Ottoman Empire became set up and was not invading everywhere anymore, it essentially chilled out and wasn't taking over land and finally dwindled. And there is a calling back of Islamists to that period and to that time. Make no mistake, folks, the Quran and the Hadiths are quite violent and repugnant. If you're a Muslim and you believe that you're part of the religion of peace, fine, but I don't know how you explain your prophet or the writings of said prophet. Here we have a journalist trying to cover for this. And again, this is the narrative because supposedly Muslims were oppressed. This is an interesting idea, considering that they actually were oppressors and in charge, ran a large portion of the slave trade for very, very many generations, longer than Western nations for certain. and would castrate folks, and of course continue in sex slavery today. Obviously, we can get to the jihadist stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on there. It is the very wealthy, semi-westernized Muslim nations, semi-secular, that are essentially our allies, right? And it is my opinion that the destabilization of the Middle East is done purposefully to justify having a global police force. Could be wrong about that. Could be all about oil. I don't think it is about controlling oil in the region. There is oil all over the world. South America, I'm sure, has lots of oil reserves we have yet to discover. We know that America does. Russia, of course, and parts of Asia. So I just don't buy that argument. This is something deeper. And we also like puppet regimes over there that are quite friendly to us, which is why we have an issue with Iran. In any case, why do I bring this up? Well, because I have a couple articles about 100-year plans, and I'm bringing this up in the context of I've been talking about the 100-year plans of China. Now, instead of doing that directly today, I'm going to mention China in just the greater scheme of 100-year plans. So this won't technically be a part of that series. I will come back Friday and finish that up for a little 4 parts on that. We will talk about China before I get out at the end of the day. But this idea of having 100-year plans is not anything new. We're just here in the West, like, doing things by the seat of our pants with our semi-fascistic, centralized control of our economy and marriage of free markets, which we regulate to death depending on who's in charge and who's not. And trust me, if one sphere is being regulated to death, some other sphere is being unregulated, most likely. Republican or Democrat. That's how it works. So here, I guess originally from frontpagemagazine.com, August 15th, 2006. As I always say, I like older articles. Less woke scold in there, less of the PC stuff. Theocracy on the 100-year plan. America has its own Islamic fascist right here at home. When President Bush said we're at war with Islamic fascists, he was referring to Osama bin Laden and his acolytes in London trying to blow U.S. airliners out of the Atlantic skies. By the way, folks, I brought it up before. There is a lot of fascism in the Islamic world. They marry socialism and free markets, and the government itself tends to run certain parts of the economy, mainly the oil reserves, and yeah, it's fascistic, guys. That's what fascism is. It is a political economic system that is left-leaning. It's based out of centralized authoritarian control, and it implements types of socialism, public welfare. But America has its own Islamic fascist right here at home. Once they amass the numbers, they secretly plan to nullify our Bill of Rights and religious freedoms and create their own Muslim state run by Islamic law. By the way, I'm just reading this. This is someone else's opinion. I don't think this is a true threat, although I think that Ilhan Omar and who's the other member of the squad who's, I can never remember her name, the ugly girl that no one likes. Oh, anyways, the girl with the glasses. You all know who I mean. In any case, she's no AOC or Ilhan. So, but yeah, I think that they would have their schemes. Obviously, there's people like Linda Sarsour, whose last name means cockroach, by the way, in Arabic, who's trying to pretend like feminism is part of the Muslim world. There are rights given to women, of course, but nothing at all in the Muslim world exist without men coming first. So let's not confuse the two, because feminism is purely a supremacist movement. In any case, regardless, it says they've got a 100-year plan, but they are already making inroads. Outstandingly, some of them head the allegedly moderate Muslim groups who protested Bush's use of the phrase Islamic fascist. The Council on American Islamic Relations whined that the term contributes to the rising level of hostility towards Islam. By the way, the despite all the like the Green Day music videos and who else? What well, just all kinds of bands back in the day and all kinds of lefties talking about Bush being in a fascist regime. Of course, yes, yes, saw fascism for sure because they were doing the same policies we've been doing since FDR. Like just somewhat freer markets. Remember, the housing bubble was under Bush. That was all the government incentivizing banks, private businesses, and lenders and the market, the stock market, to ensure that, housing could be ubiquitous amongst Americans, regardless of their income, and that there were no consequences. There was a social welfare in place. Amazing. Amazing how that screwed up the economy so much, too. And globally, because, well, the U.S. has the global currency. So yeah, these folks, like, when anyone talks about fascism, I want to, like, roll my eyes and blow my brains out, hypothetically, not even hypothetically, you know what I mean, metaphorically. It just drives me nuts because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't understand the economic underlying basis of what fascism is. They've never read anything like The Vampire Economy by Gunter Riemann, which I have covered before in the past in my earlier videos. I might have to come back to that. They just don't delve into it. They don't delve into Ludwig von Mises's breakdown of fascism and how he looked at the economics of it. What they do is they listen to Marxist professors say, no, fascism's capitalism. They don't even understand what capitalism is. And it's all based out of like Marxist framing, which is, again, absurd. Why would you allow your enemy to frame your debate? No. No, we can agree on terms, but you're not framing the debate for me. A certain person who has a neck beard and long hair and is a little pudgy and comes off like a snarky intellectual who I often call Voldemort, because I won't mention his name because he's not a genuine person, and pretty much everyone gets that. But a certain YouTuber will make all these claims himself and doesn't know a thing. Talks about co-ops in Uruguay. If, like, Uruguay had some sort of great economy. It's just, like, you're a child, dude. You're a child who uses big words, and I'm so snarky, and listen to me. Anyways, that's aside. Let's get to the context here. I've been running my mouth for over 10 minutes now. The use of ill-defined hot-button terms such as Islamic fascism harms our national image and interest worldwide, particularly in the Islamic world, the group said in a press release. Okay? Our nation, please, IR really only cares about the interest of one nation, the Nation of Islam. Okay? It's our leaders are on our record stating the desire to replace the constitutional democracy with a fascist society as we know it, represented by Sharia law. Again, this is important. This is culturally important because when this comes up on the sphere of the lefties, you have to understand what's really going on. Islam isn't an American to be equal to be any other faith, but to become dominant. It says, lest anyone think he was misquoted, the spokesman, Doogie Hooper, let it slip to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that he essentially wants the same thing. I wouldn't want to create an impression that I wouldn't like the government of the United States to become Islamic sometime in the future. Of course, he's a Muslim. This is like this is really no different than Mormons. If I have any Mormon listeners out there, and you know your history, the history of the Mormon Church. Joseph Smith preached that they were going to take over the United States. This was part of their journey, that they were going to become politically involved. By the way, all that's antithetical to Christianity, at least early Christianity. And of course, someone would say this in Minneapolis. Again, this was 2006 because that has been a hotbed for Muslim immigration, that area. They aren't alone. The former head of the American Muslim Council, supposedly the most mainstream Muslim organization in America, exhorts Muslims in turn to the U.S. into an Islamic national rule by Quranic law if it takes 100 years. According to federal court records, popular New York Imam Shijara, I'm not going to try and pronounce Arabic names, told his flock in a taped sermon available at his mosque in time, the so-called democracy will crumble, and there will be nothing, and only thing that will remain will be Islam. Another so-called moderate cleric admitted in a recent interview in the New York Times, I would like to see America become a Muslim country. These Quaslings aren't part of the fringe. They represent the Muslim establishment in America, and they are on record wishing America would be ruled by Islamic law and not the Constitution. Now they have the gall to publicly denounce Bush for associating Islam with everything they would let an emir establish in his place. Rigid, one-party theocratic rule, forcible oppression of opposing views and beliefs, collectivism, militarism, sexism, chauvinism, and anti-Semitism. First off, chauvinism is not a bad word. Chauvin was a guy who was a die-hard believer in Napoleon, and basically after Napoleon was done and over with for the last and final straw, he was still on board, and he was a true believer. So if anything, chauvinism is being an ideologue or to some degree a patriot, depending, but it is more aptly applied to most leftists than it ever is to anyone who is a patriot. The evidence is overwhelming. Everywhere it is confided and put into practice. Sharia law requires a brutal suppression of dissent, free will, and individualism, which is why the left aligns with it. Apostates face a death sentence, and not only Pakistan, but most Taliban Afghanistan, the supposed model for Islamic democracy in the Muslim world. Actually, that would be the Iranian caliphate. That's would be the real model, and that's, you know, forcible oppression, collectivism, militarism, sexism, all that stuff. Well, sexism, whatever. I mean, who cares? Like, if you're not like forcibly making women do stuff, I don't really care what you think. It's kind of like racism. It's like, as long as you can't forcibly go attack people because of their race, right? But I don't know. People are allowed to hate people. People will hate me because I'm super straight. Probably shouldn't say that because YouTube will be banning that eventually here. But no, I mean, you get people on the left that will hate me because I am a Christian, white, heterosexual male, right? That's okay to hate, though. I don't really care if they hate me, to be honest. I only care if they act upon that hate. That's when it becomes an issue. The evidence is overwhelming. Everywhere it is confided. Well, anyways, I just read that. Supposed model for Islamic democracy is the model of the world. Bibles are still confiscated and churches are still banned in Saudi Arabia. Non-Muslims working there must still be use separate roads and facilities. One of the finest decrees by New Reform Mind, King Abdullah, was banning photos of women and censoring any anti-Wahhabi stories in newspapers through the kingdom. If that's not fascism, what is? By the way, go watch the movie The Kingdom with Jamie Foxx back in the day. It's pretty good. It's been a while since I've seen it. But it'll kind of show you the reality of that world. Not completely, but a bit. Across the Gulf is another religious police state, run by Shiites, but no less Muslim and hateful of Jews. Iran's leader, Ahmadinejad, is goose-stepping, and his goose-stepping army are big fans of Hitler, the fascist. What a surprise. Perhaps these regimes have swerved off the spiritual path and no longer really follow the tenets of their faith. Actually, they follow them all too well. Sharia law is plucked directly from the Quran and Sunnah. That's why we still have today's barbarous 14,000-year-old Bedouin justice like beheadings, amputations, and stonings. Sharia also sanctions polygamy, denies women basic rights, and merges mosques and state. Make no mistake, all of this is scripturally supported, that is, Quranically supported. So polygamy, I don't care about either. However, that is against Christian tenets, not Old Testament Jewish tenets, but Christian tenets. Denies women basic rights. Well, again, that is sort of against Christian tenets, is it not? You could say otherwise, but you are, one, not acquainted with biblical text. You could say there's some statements from Paul. Yeah, he said that he doesn't allow women to teach men. That's what he said. Okay. Merges mosque and state. That was always a lesson. The church and the state were never meant to be married. That's all throughout the Bible. Some people say, well, there is a Jewish church and state. No, there wasn't, actually. The Jews had no state. They just had judges. God was their king, and then they wanted to become like the rest of the world with kings. And Jesus talked nothing about having an established Christian state. In fact, he said, render under to Caesar what is Caesar, and God's what is God's. Very clearly, obviously, two separate things. If you read the early church, they wouldn't even allow people to go into politics because they might have to order someone's death. No joke. It's what the early church taught about. Anyways, we could go on about this 100-year-long plan. This is quite a long article. Oh, okay, it's mostly comments. Never mind. But I wanted you to get a sense of some things about Islam and 100-year plans. Now, this is some of that and some other stuff. So, the Dauntless Post. It's a little blog post from 2016. I was going to read the first part of the Chinese stuff that I was talking about, and I really didn't get around to it, but let's do it now. How to Destroy the United States of America, the 100-Year Plan. I wrote in 2009. It was true then, and it's more true now. It also tell you who beside Obama is responsible for the Muslim takeover of the world, including the United States of America. How to Destroy the United States of America, the 100-Year Plan. All countries and civilizations throughout history's leaders and politicians have made plans for future and their countries to change them from what they were to what they want them to be. It all takes time. It doesn't matter that the planner of the takeover or the war it might take. I guess it doesn't matter how long it takes, whatever. Let me get this a little bit larger. There we go. Doesn't matter that the planner of the takeover or the war it might take will have to die. It only matters that the plan will work and the people follow the plan. The Saudis, under the leadership of King Abdullah, have a plan that they are carrying out right now. When that plan was made, had to be in his lifetime. The plan to take over the world by sending the Muslims to every country in the world and populate it with Muslims. And they're doing it right now. All Muslims have 4 wives in countries like America where you can only have 1 wife by law. They still have 4. And they are outproducing the whole population of the United States 8-1. This is a big issue that the Europeans bring up, and this is why they are importing them. This is supposed to be due to replacement birth rates going down in the West, except for at the same time we have the problem of industrialization and ultimization, and that ultimization will get rid of jobs. So why do we need replacement birth rates? It's not about that, folks. That's the lie. That is the esoteric belief. That is the belief on the surface, the esoteric, the occult, the secret belief. The belief of these folks is that they must move everyone in the world into urbanized areas in order to save the planet. It's probably not about really that either. That seems to be on the surface. It's more about control. And of course, instability helps them control. When people are fighting amongst each other, fighting amongst themselves, fighting amongst the different demographic, cultural groups that they're in, the not getting along, banging heads because they are culturally different, because they have different religious beliefs, and they are willing to fight, there's tension there, then the government does not have to create that tension themselves, because they know that diversity isn't really, that is cultural diversity, so much a strength, or ethnic diversity, as it is a way to break down unit cohesion. See, there has to be some sort of unit cohesion at some point or another. When you are in the Marine Corps, as I was, everyone is stripped of their identity within boot camp. For 3 months, you go around saying, this recruit. You cannot say I. You are not a Marine. You are not Bill. You are not whatever your last name is. You are this recruit. Now, your drill instructors may call on you by name, but you're not Private Schmuckatelli or anything else. You are this recruit. And there is no you. You cannot say you to your drill instructors or anyone else, at least formally, politely. They do this on purpose. Why? Because they are to break you down to build you back up. And what do they build you back up as? They build you back up as a Marine. Now, there might be some fools here and there. There's a lot of brainwashed black folk who thinks everything is about racism, who are in the military, who make race a thing. That's probably more so prevalent today than it is when I was in almost 20 years ago. But I can tell you this, when I was in, just about every black dude I served with, it was cool. We didn't talk about race. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't whatever. And if we did, we joked around about it and just the different cultural things because we were brothers in the Marine Corps. See, that's an identity. But when everyone has their own identity, when we have a multiculturalism, all these people living together instead of pluralism, and they don't integrate, we have conflict. You ever notice how the Chinese have Chinatowns all over the world and they never integrate? They never integrate. What do? They keep to themselves. They police themselves. They don't talk to outsiders. Same thing happens in ghetto urban communities of any sort, right? Black, white, whatever, Hispanic, whatever. They've divided themselves and split themselves up. Now, what happens when you have a similar thing, but you have people mixed together and you purposely force them together? Well, there's conflict. There's conflict. We could talk about all the anti-racism and all the wokeness. Now we have to bring everyone together. There's still conflict, folks. And right now, the price is for all folks who are of European descent, Caucasian, white, whatever you wish to call it. They must chide themselves and have white guilt and white man's burden, all that nonsense. Look, guys, you're not responsible for things that your ancestors did, and there is no living person today that is innocent, at least of the sins of their ancestors. Doesn't exist. I don't care what race, culture, ethnicity, nation, whatever we want to talk about. It just doesn't exist. So he talks about they will eventually take over the government and will control all aspects of American societies and force everyone to submit to Islam or die. I don't think this is actually a thing that's going to happen in America, but it is very strong in Europe right now. They will slaughter millions of taxpayers, all for their children and Muslim women. They have illegal Mexican babies anchoring subsidizing black communities, sex, and communities at $15,000 a month for each child. This is pretty racy, actually. This is a little spicy. The United States of America is now at the end of a 100-year plan to destroy the republic and the freedom of the American people. All the progressive, socialist, communistic, Democrats, and Republican traitors are in place under the leadership of Barack Hussein Obama, our closest Muslim president. I don't think Obama is Muslim at all, but he is sympathetic. And then all these other people. What do we have now? Again, this is an older article. What do we have now, though? We have Obama Light, Part 2. We have Joe and Kamala. It's really Kamala's presidency, folks. Like, let's not joke about this. And it's really not hers. It's might as well be Klaus Schwab's of the World Economic Forum. So let's go look at reality. It might as well be the Federal Reserve and the World Bank and the UNs. It's not. Like this isn't individuals, and that's where this article misses the mark. It says to do this, they have to destroy America, which are happy doing so. Obama and his gang have taken over General Motors, banks, and Obama has the nerve to tell Wall Street to work with him, destroy themselves, but not the whole capitalist system. This guy thinks he can charm or snake charm the people out of a tree, yada, yada, yada. He's a new god on earth. So this guy really hates Obama. I'm not a fan either. But if you go through all this, right, it gets into who started the 100-year plan to destroy America and leave it only for the richest elite to live like the royalty of the United States of America. Woodrow Wilson and his mentor, Edward House, who loved socialism and communism, he guided Wilson to incorporate racism given to the 12 biggest banks in the country to take over the printing of our money and to pay them a huge fee for doing it. That's true. That's 50% of our national debt, actually. The $29 trillion, half of that is owed to our own central bank. How could Wilson convince the Congress at this time in history to give away this? By making sure that they all, for the rest of their lives and their families' lives forever, as long as there is a Federal Reserve, will receive money from his treasonous act against the American people. Wilson also started the UN. No, he didn't start the UN. He started the League of Nations, which became the UN, more or less, which at the time of World War I was called the League of Nations, which didn't work then, is not working now. Actually, it works very well. That's the reason why we have all the stuff that we have. It's the reason why all the propaganda was against Trump. By the way, Wilson was a big fan of H.G. Wells, and he patterned the League of Nations after reading one of H.G. Wells' dream book. Very smart for a super elitist and brilliant brain, creating the first Illuminati, the first takeover of money in the League of Nations, which will and has been doing work against the United States of America. Well, he's not wrong there, and I've mentioned this stuff before. It says he also created the the Council of Foreign Relations. I don't know where that information is because that's a David Rockefeller organization, not a government agency, but a private, and always worked against the freedom of the United States of America, run by the wealthiest people in the world. David Rockefeller is the head of the organization. Rockefeller, with the help of Zbigniew Brzezinski, Big Z, Misha Brzezinski, that is old Joe Scarborough's wife, on the news. Just remember that when she is telling you stuff on the news, that her father was one of the greatest, most influential globalists in the American government ever, called the Trilateral Commission, who worked against the citizens of the United States, where G.W. Bush came up with the New World Order. He didn't come up with that. Yeah, this guy's kind of wonky on his stuff, but it's right. Oppress freedom in the United States and turn Americans into a communist satellite. He just mentioned H.G. Wells, by the way, and H.G. Wells wrote a book called The New World Order. I have a copy of it. Pretty sure I covered it in my channel before. So I don't know where he's saying Bush said that. What Bush did mention, though, was some things from Hope and Tragedy, or Tragedy and Hope. I always get the name confused. And the Anglo-American Alliance, that there was this great long passion to bring about this new world order, the world order, that this is the thing that's been centuries long, that we're all striving toward one world government. This goes back to Francis Bacon's Atlantis. And if you go into the occult side of things, you can read Manning P. Hall's The Secret History of America, which is really, really fascinating book about that America was the new Atlantis, and that the ideas of the founding fathers was actually to start this Illuminati idea of the New World Order, the one world government, all the stuff coming out of the French Revolution, Jacobinism, which of course is just proto-communistic. And so this goes on. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of sort of how this ties back in. Now, the Muslim stuff, look, guys, the Muslim world is never going to quite take over. And I'll tell you why right now. Because it's too violent for the world leaders. It's only used and propped up as a distraction and a means to justify their actions. So, from this next article here, this is the 6th column, the 25-point project for the 100-year plan of global Islamist domination. This is May 12th, 2006, also known as the Muslim Brotherhood Project. Patrick Poole tells us at the front page about a top-secret 100-year plan to cultivate invasion that was already 20 years old when discovered by Swiss authorities in November 2001. Why haven't we heard of this before? The discussion of its contents has been limited to the top-secret world of Western intelligence communities and was made public to intrepid Swiss journalist Sylvain Besson of Le Temps, let's get down here. How can we be sure from the authenticity of the plan? The plan came into the hands of the Swiss authorities from a raid of a luxurious villa in Campon, Switzerland on November 7th. The raid target was Youssef Nada, director of Al Taqwa Bank, anyways, whatever, who has had active association with the Muslim Brotherhood for more than 50 years, who admitted to being one of the organization's international leaders. Now, November 7th, 2001 was obviously very shortly after the attacks of September the 11th. And this should let you know that this information coming about and the ramp up of global power and also the Patriot Act here in the U.S., that there was plans that were globally agreed upon and things were allowed to happen, folks. Now, to what level, I don't know. I'm not saying anything was an inside job. All I'm saying was realize how a lot of these things actually do unfold. That there are some one-offs and a lot of other stuff are plans. We do know this. The Taliban and bin Laden were propped up by Charlie Wilson, a former Texas congressman, if I'm not mistaken. And that was to fight the Soviets out of Afghanistan. We trained them, we gave them weapons, and they turned around and became a caliphate. Go figure. The Muslim Brotherhood, regarded as the oldest of one of the most important Islamic movements in the world, was founded by Hussein al-Bani in 1928 and dedicated to the credo, Allah is our objective, the Prophet is our leader, Quran is our law, Jihad is our way, dying is the way of Allah is our highest hope. The raid was conducted by Swiss law enforcement at the request of the White House, and the initial crackdown of terrorist finances and the immediate aftermath of 9/11. The U.S. and Swiss investigators had been looking into Taqwa's involvement in money laundering and funding, and they knew all of this. Within a month, boom, nab you up within a month. Come on, guys. It's just like right now what's going on with Antifa being left alone, but they can infiltrate the semi-right-wing anarchists. They're actually, they like BLM and Antifa, of these anarchists in Michigan and basically entrap them with a plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. Now, I talked about this when it came out. I didn't have the full facts then. I got more later. Didn't talk about it much afterwards, but I was like, oh, finally, some right-wing violence since the left has been doing it forever. But no, those guys are actually pretty lefty. They're part of the Boogaloo Boys. The Boogaloo Boys are more or less a left-wing organization that keep getting said are right-wing because we've lost the meaning of those terms. Left-wingers are authoritarian revolutionaries. They always have been. During the American Revolution in the United States, the revolutionaries would have been the left-wingers because they were going against the crown. They then became the conservatives as we set up our own government because they were conserving our government, so they became the right wing. Between the right and the left, there was Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was on the left as the Democratic Republicans. And Hamilton, he liked monarchy. So he was on the right wing. But no, we were going to create a new government. The biggest difference was the United States didn't want an authoritarian government. True leftism is always authoritarian. That is one of the most outstanding things about the American Revolution. That was the big thing that de Tocqueville talked about when he wrote Democracy in America. He could not fathom how America had a revolution freeing itself from the crown and it did not wind up in authoritarian terror as the Reign of Terror did in France under the French Revolution. De Tocqueville saw this only because the Americans kept classical liberalism. They kept God in their heart. They kept the ideas of freedom and preserving individual liberty. Yet they also understood the hierarchy. Quite amazing. And the predictions de Tocqueville created or made were just spot on. Amazing. So let's go down here to the 25 plans. Networking and coordinating actions between like-minded Islamist organizations, avoiding open alliances with known terrorist organizations. Yeah, not a big deal. Obviously, you want to operate in terrorist cells. By the way, folks, anything I read here, pretty much going to be the same as Antifa plans, because this is how cells work. In case no one knows, I remind you that that picture right there is when I was in an anti-terrorist unit. So it's been a long time, but I still have the knowledge up there a little bit, and I do have all of my training books, military manuals, and whatever else still that I could always go back and reference. The information maybe has changed some, maybe they operate in somewhat new ways, but the basics are the basics. Avoiding open alliances with known organizations. Again, like I said, Antifa does that. Individuals to maintain the appearance of moderation. Infiltrating and taking over existing Muslim organizations to realign them towards Muslim Brotherhood. Again, Antifa does this with the left, using deception to mask the intended goals of their actions, as long as it doesn't avoid a conflict with the Sharia law. Of course, they're allowed to lie. That's part of their faith. They can lie to infidels. Avoiding social conflicts with Westerners locally. It's probably important. Conducting surveillance, obtaining data. Very important. That's called recon. Putting into place a watchdog system for monitoring Western media and warning Muslims of international plots fomenting against them. There's not really a lot of that going on. When Bush went against the Muslims, it was the Muslim countries that we could not control. It's why we eventually, in the Obama years, went after Libya. Putting into place a watchdog system for monitoring Western media, cultivating an Islamist intellectual community, that's certainly happening. Developing a comprehensive 100-year plan to advance the theology, balancing international objectives with local flexibility, building extensive social networks in schools, hospitals, and charitable organizations. Now, this is really coming to fruition in Europe, especially in England, with the whole migrant grooming gang issue, right? Involving ideologically committed Muslims to democratically elected institutions on all levels, like Ilhan Omar, for instance, or Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. Instrumentally using existing Western institutions until they can be converted and put into service of Islam. Drafting Islamic constitutions. Avoiding conflict with the Islamist movements on all levels. Very important. Including the development of process for conflict resolution, instituting alliances with the West, progressive organizations that share similar goals, creating autonomous security forces. And mind you, in the day that this was coming out, there were still many attacks. I mean, here on U.S. soil, this was, let me recall. Can't quite recall when the DC shootings were, the sniper shootings, but I do remember I was in the Fleet Marine Force, so probably 2002, maybe 2003. I don't recall. It was somewhere around there, because I do recall driving up from North Carolina with my buddy. I was going home or going to his family's house, and we were driving through Virginia, and all the roads were closed off. We had to take back roads. Really, really long, bad day for driving. And of course, people, if I'm not mistaken, died. Creating autonomous security for, inflaming violence and keeping Muslims living in the West. Supporting jihad movements, making Palestinian cause a global wedge issue for Muslims, which we hear a lot, again, from people like Ilhan Omar. Adopting a total liberation of Palestine from Israel, and the creation of an Islamic State as a keystone for the plans of global Islamic domination. instigating a constant campaign to incite hatred by Muslims against Jews, actively creating jihad terrorist cells within Palestine, linking the terrorist activities of Palestine with global terror movements, collecting sufficient funds to indefinitely perpetuate the support of jihad around the world. They don't have to create funds because they get a lot of money through their fascistic, socialistic policies and oil. But again, why would all this be allowed? Well, it's allowed, frankly, it's allowed because it justifies the existence of military buildup and control and all the geopolitical nonsense that, for the most part, is not real. I mean, most of these people share goals. The only real issue is, it's like Game of Thrones, folks. The only real issue going on is that these folks can't agree on who's going to be the boss. And that's the thing they're all vying for power over. Some of them can, and they want to divide it here, divide it there. I really don't think the Middle East is a true threat, and we are bringing people in to destabilize, like I mentioned earlier, doing that very much on purpose. Here, this is from Terrorism Research and Analysis Consortium, or TRAC, T-R-A-C, Manifesto of the Caliphate, Islamic State 100-Year Plan for the Islamic Sunni States. And this is from 2014. And we can read through this, but, not a big deal. I don't really care. And it's like behind some sort of paywall or whatever. I just want to show you guys that there are plans. Here is an older article, all the way from 1991, about the 100-year plan that makes Japan the world leader. Again, why am I bringing this up? And it says, according to the CIA, Japan is a non-democratic and racist heading towards world dominance. What? And Japan is an ethno-state, folks, very much so. It doesn't mean they'll be rude to you or whatever, but they are an ethno-state. And most Asian nations, by the way, folks, are very, very racist. Maybe not against white people, but over a lot of other cultures for sure. And we can't touch them, really. We cannot touch them with our mind virus. It's quite infuriating to the left. But we can read through all this. I just wanted to bring this up because the 100-year plans are not anything new, except for here in the West. But they're not even really new in the West because they exist behind the scenes. And the only people talking about them are folks like me who are willing to go down the road less traveled, the road of conspiracy theory. Except for these people talk about it openly out loud. And by the way, this was totally wrong. Japan fried its economy, and no, China is going to be the world power. So here, from Psychology Today, the 100-year plan. We won't all be geniuses in 2067, but we may each edge closer to the edge case. Oh, my Lord. When my mouse doesn't want to work, guys. Okay. A half a century ago, Psychology Today was launched in Del Mar, California. The charter cover of a childlike drawing meant to evoke unfettered creativity. PT's founder, Nicholas Carney, was fresh from a doctoral program in physiology at the University of Chicago, where he learned that the public interest in the mind was at an inflection point. He sensed a growing appetite for transition to take on behavioral science. Fast forward for more than 400 issues, yada, yada, yada. And it looks to have been highly prescient in the late 60s in a move that would make waves in mathematics. A genius by the name of Alexander Grothnecki withdrew from the milieu that he himself had radically transformed. I became intrigued by the French mathematician shortly after his death in 2014, having write The Mad Genius Mystery in hopes of understanding his unusual mind and trajectory. Okay, yada, yada, yada. And The year 2017 marks another inflection point in the study of the human mind. The next 50 years to 100 years will bring the ability not just to quantify, but also to alter fundamental aspects of identity. Today, we are at the base camp in a rapidly accelerating climb to the augmented brain. Intelligence will be more malleable, and so might the subjective experience of gender or even personality traits. To reach this summit, scientists may use some combination of genetic editing and brain computing interfaces. These tools thrill and scare us to equal measure. They are perhaps the best construed as the egalitarian force in a world changed at warp speed. So, what is the 100-year plan, you might say? Well, in 2017, she's talking about a plan from Psychology Today implemented to have everyone be transhuman, genetically edited, and have computer chips in their mind and whatever else. This is all over the world. Why am I bringing up Psychology Today, random article, 100-year plan? Because, again, just like this other article mentioned, this goes back, way back, to like guys like Wilson and H.G. Wells, George Orwell. Was it Orwell who wrote The New World Order? Maybe they both have a New World Order book. It probably is. I probably own both of them because I read most of the stuff 10, 15 years ago, and I just remember stuff. So I think they might both have one called that. But yeah, like you have all these intellectuals talking about. You had Bertrand Russell, George Bernard Shaw, obviously all the dystopian authors, and these people in leadership, Margaret Sanger. These plans have been around forever, and here we have it again. And guys, make no mistake about it. We can use different terminology, but gene editing and transhumanism is a form of eugenics. And then we have people like this. Conservative News Daily. This is from 2018. Obama and Hillary, 16-year plan to destroy America. Okay, well, we can go through all this. The above chart perfectly outlines a 16-year plan by Hillary and Obama to destroy the United States of America in the name of globalism. Obama has stated that if we did away with borders, it would end terrorism, meaning the whole world with one big country, blah, 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 blah. This isn't Obama and Hillary. This kind of talk, left-right paradigm is nonsense. It is everyone outside of the outsiders. If Mitt Romney was our president right now, he would be doing the same thing as Biden. And I promise you, if it was Jeb Bush that had won the election instead of Trump, you know, if he wasn't so low energy, that Jeb, it would have been the same thing that Obama and Biden is doing currently. And it would have been the same thing that his brother GW did. China's secret strategy exposed. We will come to this next time, and we will talk about that 100-year plan for the last bit. Now, again, this is kind of a tie-in, but I'm getting about an hour long. I just want you to know that we're not talking as a nation, as a unified nation, about where we're going to be at in 25 years and 100 years and anything else. As a nation, what are we talking about, folks? We're talking about the world ending in 10 years, due to climate change. Irreversible. Will happen. We're talking about transhumanism. Right? We're not talking about this anymore, but people back in the day, Japan. We're talking about China. Look, China's 100-year plan for world domination. We're talking about the caliphate. At what point as a people do we have plans? Or are we just playing it by ear? 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Can we not make plans, folks? Look, we have articles like this from 2017 about China's 30-year roadmap. Why is that a 30-year roadmap? Because at 2020, the idea, or 2019 actually, the idea is that they are caught up and are the world leader by 2049. And since we're going to be probably knee-deep in a civil war in 2030, That should be no problem. We're going to have a huge market crash again that will be blamed on capitalism again, despite its actually centralized banking. It's Keynesian economics. It is policies that socialists use that are written about in the Communist Manifesto, part of those 10 planks, but somehow it's capitalism. When does America get a plan? Well, we have one, folks, and it was written a long time ago, and you got to go down the dark conspiracy route to find it. You want a good place to start? Go read Treason by Garudis. I'll pull that up real quick. I think it's ADS. Aha! Just so you know what it looks like. It says, a comprehensive analysis of the Patriot Movement and New World Order, a reference with 833 footnotes. This is no joke, like live documents. This is kind of a difficult read just because it is so well researched. But, guys, go look at something like that and tell me that we don't have plans. We do. It's just not the plans that you're hearing because you're looking at the puppets. You're listening to the puppets. You're watching the MSNBCs, the ABCs, the CBSs, the Fox Newses. And again, I'm not saying you can't get real news from those outlets. Just understand that they are propaganda. Propaganda means that it has a narrative behind it, and the narrative is meant to control the way you think. In part, what I do is propaganda. But I'm not trying to control anything. I'm just trying to get you to think. Right? Like, I want you to think freely. I want you to say, go screw off, Bill, to go take a hike, if that's how you are so inclined. I think it behooves you to listen to me. I'm not right about everything, but trust me, I'm right about a lot of this stuff. In any case, guys, that's about all I have. Hey, hopefully my audio, I meant to say something at the beginning, is not all screwed up in robot voice. I don't know why it does that. I keep doing sound checks. I will work on it. I will figure it out. Maybe I'll get some sort of filter while I record these. We'll figure it out. I'm pretty sure it's on YouTube's end, though. In any case, guys, go over to Rumble. Go over to PeerTube. Go over to BitChute. Go over to YouTube if you're watching it on one of those. All minus one. Subscribe. Help me grow. Slowly growing. I will keep growing. I know that it will happen. I will one day have 1,000 subs. I'm on that slow road to 200 right now. Look, guys, it will happen. But it's not easy the way the algorithm works currently with these things because, hey, this is the world we live in now where political, cultural, sociological commentary is not propped up. Especially when I add religious views to it, which are antithetical to this New World Order. When I'm talking about the nature of human beings, when that is a concept that no longer exists, that human beings have no nature because we are our own gods, that the Chinese government, as terrible as they are, that they are, and their people are the new market, and they are going to be the new leaders, so everyone has to kiss up to them. Do you think my content will be raised up? No. Plus, everyone's going to say they debunk me with a bunch of stuff because Bill talks nonsense, but I can assure you, I am quite well researched. In any case, guys, with all that said, this has been All Minus One, and I wish you all well.